What is jealousy? I'm going to try to give men a roadmap of how to avoid jealousy. And trust me, you can't control a person, but we actually do teach people how to treat us. And there are some behaviors. I can believe some men when they say, I'll never be involved with a jealous woman. I hear people say sometimes, oh, this country or these group of people, these women are very jealous. I don't know if I believe that because I think boundaries have to be respected. And if boundaries aren't respected, there's no need to be with that person. I don't see being with a person. Let me define jealousy first of all. Jealousy is a lot of emotions that encompasses deep feelings that go from a person may be fearful, a person may be humiliated, a person may have anger, a person may have suspicion. It affects people of all ages, all sexual orientations, even animals. I read a story where these dogs was jealous of the children, and then it ended up being a fatal situation. Now, believe it or not, jealousy is actually valid, and sometimes it isn't valid. Let me give you an example. Let's say a person is in a relationship and a person sees them or you see them being very intimate, kissing and hugging on the person that you love. There may be jealousy, and that is valid. Now, jealousy could be invalid if you're just hugging the person and then you find out it's the person's father or brother, or mother or sister. Now, a jealous person will go on a rage. That whole thing. A person who isn't jealous will just find out what the situation is before coming to a conclusion. This can apply to pretty much all relationships all over the world, but I'm going to be focusing on Dominican women. It is sad. It really is sad to see a guy controlled or manipulated by a woman with his movement, and vice versa. It's sad to see a man. I think very few things are worse in a relationship than dealing with an invalid, jealous person. And you cannot change a person. Like I said before, if that's jealousy is a negative emotion, and people have these insecurities and inadequacies, fear of loss and abandonment, it manifests itself in the relationship. And if it doesn't curtail, it will be a detriment to the relationship. I think it starts at the beginning. I don't understand when people go, I'm just going to use any country. Oh, the Filipinos, they're jealous. It's what we allow. And when I say what we allow, we can't control a person, but we don't have to accept certain behaviors. And if you accept certain behaviors, I'm not saying that you get what you're asking for, but you can see the logic behind this. Certain things should not be tolerated. I think when a person is jealous, you can see it from the beginning. You know, when guys go, that whole thing of, do I look fat in this dress? Hell yeah, you look fat in that dress. You know, lying to people. I don't mean you don't have to say it that way, but I don't think lying helps. Does that girl look pretty? Why can't you say she does? Why would you lie if she does look pretty? Because we're trying to accommodate that person's mental or psychological inadequacies. I don't think it helps in the long run. And if a conversation came up like that, you have to be logical about it and address it. You have to say, who doesn't see attractive people? You think that I don't see attractive people when you're not with me? You really have to address issues like that from the beginning of the relationship. I think that's where you lose out when people don't address those situations from the beginning or don't know how to address it. I think that perpetrators of verbal abuse usually feel powerlessness. I remember reading a story. Well, we've all heard of these stories where a person they feel so powerless, they hurt other people. Some people hurt their own families. Do you know how powerless you have to be to hurt your own children? Some people take it there. Not taking up for them now, but it's that psychological sickness of feeling powerlessness. There's a psychotherapist, Julie Orlov. She wrote, in an emotionally abusive relationship, there are steps that you must take. Because the perpetrator, they use control and manipulation to strip you of your power. That's so true. Some people are afraid you'll leave. Some people feel like they'll manipulate you, they will cross manipulate you or reverse manipulate you by making you feel like you're not good enough. And some people will begin to believe that. I had a friend of mine, and he had a wife, and every time I would go to his house, she would come out and come to the end of the driveway and just sit there and listen. Eventually, I told him, I said, man, I just don't feel comfortable, talking to you, and your wife's just right there the whole time, not saying nothing, just sitting there looking at us. And he did not like that. And I really hate to see fellas in those situations, Now, the thing is, how do you navigate with a controlling, jealous, Dominican, or Latin girlfriend? They can make your life an emotional mess and a living hell. If you want peace and tranquility, then you must hear this. I'm 50 plus, and a lot of brothers can learn something from older brothers. I listen to centurions all the time, and I tell young people this is the most important question they can ask older people, because you can learn from other people's mistakes. I always ask people, and I tell my children, I always ask people, if you could go back 20, 30 years, what are the things that you may do differently? That is first of all, anybody who wants to know that is, the older person will say they're probably fairly intelligent to even ask that question. And listen intently to what those older people are saying. So what I'm saying here about jealousy is backed up by some years also. Although there are older men who are in unhealthy relationships because they, and women, because they have a controlling partner. Now, I'm really talking about Latin and Dominican women. So if I use women, I'm talking about men and women. This can work for men and women. It's normal to guard the people that we love. It's, I think that's normal. There's a difference between feeling jealous and exhibiting unhealthy jealous behaviors. Normal jealousy is like a pain. It comes in an instant. And many times people will dismiss it. Unhealthy jealousy behavior happens when we indulge in that feeling and we act impulsively from a place of suspicion and insecurity. When insecurity is in our relationship, it runs rampant. Jealousy can rapidly grow into paranoia and obsession and threatens to destroy the very relationship we're most afraid to lose. Some people will be jealous of your time, even spending time with your mother and your father. Can you imagine? Some people are jealous of you wanting to be around your family and your mother. It is that bad for some people. Jealousy doesn't become a big problem until it's acted on. As I've said before, people who have intense jealousy or possessiveness often, and this is important, harbor feelings of inadequacy and inferiority. They have a tendencies to compare themselves to other people. Jealousy at its core is a byproduct of fear, of not being good enough, fear of loss. It can be an irrational suspicion, which makes it very blurry or to distinguish between natural feeling of protectiveness or jealousy. One more example of or definition of jealousy. I'll give you a working definition. It is something that is not real, and the person is hurt, angry, controlling, combative, etc., over something that isn't even real. Like I said at the beginning, a person could be hugging their uncle or their aunt, and the person will go off and act on that instead of just sitting back and saying, finding out what's going on. Now, I can say this about Dominican women. Some of them have very strong radars for nonsense. So you can't play games. I think that, whether it's a happily ever after or a casual hookup, they have a strong radar for nonsense. Playing games, I think, doesn't get you anywhere. If you fall under any of these variables, you're dealing with a jealous woman. You are required to check in under the guise of, I just want to know that you're safe, but you're constantly checking in. There's some fellas that you can't even go fishing with. I say that from experience. You know, when you're fishing, you got to kind of keep the noise down. You're scared the fishes away because the wife is calling every 5 minutes. If there are rules about who you can even talk to, you're dealing with a jealous woman. If she isolates you from your friends and your family, when you're not surrounded by others, you become distant with them, it is easier for that person to control your behavior. People who are jealous and manipulative, they want to isolate the victim. I'll say the victim. When she tells you that you should behave in a certain way, change some things. You know, one of the greatest things about loving somebody a long time, I believe, is you have to accept them for who they are. Trying to change people, it's hard to change yourself. It's hard to change yourself. It's hard to, if you ask most people to lose weight, or it's hard. So it's definitely an uphill battle trying to change another person. I'll give you a joke. I had a girlfriend. It was a friend of my woman. And she would come over, eat up everything, drink up everything. And this is kind of wrong, but it's still kind of funny. And I was like, man, I don't want her coming over here every day. So I started being very loving to her, hugging her. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Man, my lady hurried up and got rid of her. I started, where's your friend? That's manipulative. But I am no holy. I am not. So we've all made mistakes. I wouldn't do that again, though. But when I started being nice to that girl, she got rid of her quick. Too nice to her. I was too nice to her. Well, that's the type of manipulation that goes on with people who may be jealous. I wasn't really jealous of her. I just didn't want to see her every day. A lot of women look for defensiveness when you talk to other women. A jealous boyfriend or girlfriend is constantly worried about if their boyfriend or, girlfriend may leave. If you have interactions with other women, it's like grave danger in relationships with some people. And just as I said, in extreme cases, this extends to your family members and mutual friends. People who are possessive and has a quick temper is a form of jealousy. However, it is always best to, in any situation, to be with a person who is slow to anger versus a person who is quick to anger. But it is also important, before you are in any long-term relationships, you want to see that person. Unfortunately, it could be a good thing to see the person when they are very angry. You want to see people in all stages of who they are. You have a jealous woman if her criticism is very harsh of you. No matter how you try, she will always find something, or he will always find something wrong. Now, criticism is good to a degree. Now, in this context, criticism is seen as a powerful weapon of manipulation. It makes the other person feel undervalued and unaccepted. So if your woman is constantly criticizing you for the smallest of things, know that it is not healthy. Many times it leads to a huge gap between two persons. And it is a for sure destroyer of a good relationships. You have to take these accusations like of jealousy head on. That is one of the biggest problems. I think a lot of people who may not be confrontational think it may be best to just let it go. I think I think it's an error because many times when a person is manipulative, it only gets worse until it's addressed. It's kind of like being a bully. Not only that, if a woman or a man is controlling you and your friends and even your own family members may not respect you. If a person demands to know even the smallest details about everything, you got to nip that in the bud. She always demands that you tell her where you're going and how long you'll be there. She also demands these small details about the place you went, who you went with. Sometimes some of these people even spy on you, your social networks, when you leave your phone in their vicinity, or demands that you show her what you've been posting, or demands to look into your phone. We all have to have, I know so many guys that's like, oh, she can look through my phone, look through my, I think for me, I think that's going too far. Even going through her stuff like that. We all have to have a degree of space. And if you refuse to let her go through your phone, then she's doubting you even more. That's a form of manipulation. She doesn't trust anybody around you or is insecure. That's another sign. She deprives you of your freedom because she herself feels entrapped. I'll say it again. These jealous women will deprive you of your freedom because essentially they feel entrapped. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny sometimes? I know some guys deal with this. If a woman is unattractive, that's not a problem. But if a woman is attractive, they may have a problem with that. If you're with a person that's always telling you what you need to do, that's another sign. Many of these prying questions, I'm going to go back to that, about your activities. A jealous girlfriend won't trust you to behave when you are not under her supervision. Telling you how to drive is controlling. Jealousy can become brutal. Mentioning old boyfriends, putting you down. You have to protect these things. All of these things that I'm talking about. Not supporting your dreams or goals. One thing you have to do is create boundaries. These are some solutions. These boundaries have to have actions behind them. You ever see a kid just going crazy in the mall or wherever? That doesn't start in the mall. That starts at home. You ever see a teacher screaming or parents screaming, you better sit down? They've lost control already because they haven't created boundaries. If you don't create boundaries from the get-go, then you're losing from the outset. If you're a super easygoing man and you're not willing to create boundaries because you don't want to be confrontational, it creates a lot of problems for most women. Sometimes you see those guys in the United States, they just giving up. They say things like she's the boss. I let her. Nothing hurt me more than to hear so many, like Denzel Washington was saying, I don't make the decisions. That really kind of, like, wow. Some of that behavior, I think some of these men who just become a punching bag probably sends them to their grave faster than if they would have stood up to their woman or wife. What I'm saying here is how agreeable your woman is says more about you than her. If you got a woman that's loud and cantankerous, you can't control her, but you're allowing it by staying with her. There's a word here called tigre, which basically says you have to be a leader without being aggressive, right? Like a tiger, this is what it is. Doesn't have to, show teeth and be crazy. He's just a tiger, and he warrants respect. And we all have to warrant respect, women and men. You don't have to be confrontational, which I think is counterproductive. However, you do have to be forward and deal from a position of strength. You have to pay the cost to be the boss. Just sell that. For instance, no hitting, no threats, point blank period. Setting the tone is super important. What you set in place goes. What you tolerate grows. Let me repeat it again. What you set in place goes. What you tolerate grows. Women, just like everybody else, likes boundaries, or at least respects boundaries. If you are of value and she has any sense, she will fall in line, especially if you are standing on principle and you're right. And just as I said, you can't change people, but we constantly teach people how to treat us. I meant to say something earlier, I taught for a number of years, and I remember, and like I was saying, those teachers who, was hollering, they didn't have control of their classes. I remember the teachers who I respected. They had a certain type of skill in order to control the classroom and gain respect. It was not the loud teacher. It was not the person that was too soft. It was the teacher who won your respect by either keeping you busy or falling in line or failing you if you needed it, etc. You are always selling yourself. So you have to sell that. Just as I said, you have to sell yourself. This is why you can see a woman with one man and not have any respect for him at all. The same woman can go to another guy and have a different dynamic. Whatever you tell the woman that you're with, the Dominican over here, or Latin woman, that you actually need, you have to stand firm on those things. She also has to tell you. And that is a very important conversation. Friend of mine, very good friend of mine, who was, I don't want to call this love. He must have been obsessive or something. But he was allowing his woman to cheat. And it was hurting him. He wasn't allowing it. He just wouldn't bounce. He wouldn't leave. I told him, I said, man, she's out there. And he did catch like 2 diseases. He still didn't leave. He died of a heart attack. You see, now that stress that was given, he was kind of allowing that stress to be in his life. He was panicking. He died in his 30s. You see, that stress, that's that invisible killer. Don't take that word lightly. Stress is the invisible killer and has all types of negative health effects. Another thing that you could do is don't open up your privacy so fast. Don't give people instant access to you and they have done nothing to earn it. I've seen guys open up their money without a person earning it. You do not want to create an environment where they see you and they see you coming as Santa Claus. I like to use this term, the pinball effect. As long as you're putting coins in it, it's going to light up. You don't want to be seen in that light. You're basically saying when you're giving people money for something that they're not doing, they're basically seeing you as a trick, and this is how you're going to be treated. You ever hear guys say, man, they do it for this group of people, but not for this, Don't pimp yourself. It's hard to buy love anyway. It's a show that proves people buying and giving people your resources. It just doesn't buy or deserve respect. Now, no one likes a cheap person. However, do not create a subconscious mentality of you don't have to do anything to earn anything from me. I think all relationships are reciprocal. What you value, see, if you don't value your money, other people won't value it. People are going to see. It's one thing to talk, but actions are a different thing. Another thing that you cannot allow from the beginning, again, is access to your money, access to your property, going through your stuff. Just going in your bedroom, going through your refrigerator, stuff like that. You have to create these boundaries. Barely knowing you and going through your things, you got to stop that at the door. Sometimes people will even bring their friends and family without even asking you. I think it's disrespectful. Like if you say you're going out to dinner or an invitation, it's one thing to ask you, but it's another thing to bring other people. Don't sell yourself short. If what you are looking for is loyalty, character, submissiveness, don't be afraid to speak up. And all of these things have to be done from the beginning. People don't know. You have to make people aware of what you're looking for. And as I said before, We're always selling ourselves. Always. And I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to people, but I'll try to give you an example. You want to be treated a certain way. So you have to behave a certain way in order for people to buy that. You want people to buy that you're being nice to them. You want people to buy that you're being respectful so they can be respectful to you. So you're always selling yourself. And as I said, if I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody, you have to make it aware. It's kind of like this. My granddaddy would say, nah, everybody milk cows over here. Everybody has to pull their weight. Everybody does. So if you're doing this, then they should be doing, just everything has to be, kind of balanced. Don't be a pinball machine. I think another mistake is, again, you can't repair a person. You have to be willing to leave. If you can't, if you see that you've asked to be respected, and it's kind of, being controlling with a controlling Dominican woman is abusive, or a man giving your passcode to your phone and Facebook. It ain't gonna fix that. You think that's gonna fix that? Those guys that are doing that, they still are almost in prison. See, insecurity makes a person paranoid. Being an open book will backfire, giving all your passwords. Stuck in your house like you a house cat, dying to get out. I think there's another thing too here, and I think this is huge here from the outset. You just can't be a liar. Trust is built. Create an environment of trust. Let's say, for instance, if you're with a woman, right? And she comes in at 3 a.m. and she's constantly doing that, or whatever behavior, then you have to say this. If I am to trust you, you have to have trustworthy behavior. And leave it at that. Now, if a person does not have trustworthy behavior, they are not to be trusted. It is simple as that. Why would you trust a person when you obviously see that they don't have trustworthy behavior? So that is important. Trust has to be built. Little things like the phone ringing at night, won't answer it. Going in the bathroom, all kind of, we all know these behaviors. Create an environment of trust. Don't be a liar. If she asks you if you've seen a good looking woman, you tell her yes every day. If you're looking, say yes. It's one thing to be disrespectful, but it's another thing to make her feel like you're a freaking horse with blinders on, that it's weak. I would say you shy away from that and just be honest. Stop hovering under a rock like you're afraid to be honest with her. What is she going to say when you say, or what is he going to say? Yeah, look, why is it harmful? I told a guy one time, we were talking, and I told him, I said, he said he doesn't, If a girl walks by or whatever, he's just not gonna be honest with her. He's gonna say, no, 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 she all right. She all right, you know. And I told him to try it, and he did. And she was happy that he was honest. Beautiful woman walked by, and she asked you how you think she looked, and you told her, I don't know, you all right. You know, like nothing. She know you lying. Say it quickly too. Yep. I believe, I truly believe this, and I think, and this might bother some people, but I think women are natural followers of rules. Look at any country in the world. Who breaks the rules in those countries? Men or women? So it's just going to be natural, I think, that most women will follow if you have, you know, yourself on point. So you better get out in front and learn how to manage and sell yourself. You have to open up. She has to trust you, point blank, period. There's no getting around this. If you are creating an environment of fear and distrust, what do you expect? If you are a liar and you've ruined trust, well, that's what you get. If you have walls, then you have created these walls. There's another thing, your friends. Your friends can sometimes dictate, and rightfully so, how she sees you. There's an old saying, you know who we around. You know if your lady are around ladies that just doing all kind of wild stuff, pretty much, you can say your lady's doing it too. Look here, man. Keep those necromongers and those hyenas out of your circle. They cannot help it, and they make you look bad. There are guys that's all they think about, and it makes you look bad. Another thing here is you have to think about this. I've been saying this. You are going to get the energy that you put out. And please, please have this conversation with her about boundaries. Be patient, but be firm when it comes to boundaries. You cannot compromise. I'm not saying be ridiculous with boundaries. Be fair. There are boundaries that have to be respected. Listen to the person and what she has to say about her boundaries, or he has to say. Tell her how this is hugely important. Tell her how her actions make you feel. If she is jealous, I really believe this with all of my heart. All I have to do is look at how your woman treats you. It says a lot about you, man. It says a lot about what you will accept. It says a lot about what your boundaries are. When that jealousy comes in, man, you really can't gain much from jealous inclinations, acting on your impulses. Is it going to hurt, or is it going to improve your relationship? Will it make you feel better, or will it make you feel worse? Will it fix the problem, or will it aggravate it? Except that in relationships, there is no certainty. Just as you cannot make someone love you, you cannot make someone remain loyal or stay. If you are unable to trust your partner, you are better off moving on so you can enjoy independence or find someone else who shares your values. If you can't move past a jealous feeling, be honest. Instead of pouting, giving the silent treatment, tell your partner specifically what is making you feel that way and listen to their response. You'll likely find the interaction strengthens the relationship rather than tears it down, the way punishments and games do. And if you have to, end contact for good. If none of this resolves it, be willing to leave her because her jealousy makes you miserable and it makes her miserable also. There's no easy way to say this. If your woman, wife, girlfriend shows you no sign, boyfriend, husband shows you no sign of trying to keep their jealousy under control, jealousy is going to make your relationship tense, and it's going to be an unhappy one. And it's time to call it quits. Why would you stay in a relationship that makes both of you feel worse with time? Breaking up with someone is never easy, while strong emotions are basically inevitable. And last but not least, abusive relationships have cycles. The contrition phase is when the abusive partner feels very sorry and does everything she can to pull you back into the relationship. You maybe shout with affection, loving gestures. They're common with abusive people. And this is why some people stay. This is why some people go back to a person who has hit them, pulled a knife on them, pulled a gun on them, and go back and get hurt or possibly killed. Because see, that's another serious issue. Jealousy can go that far. In order to leave an abusive relationship, you have to recognize that contrition phase, that contrition phase is short-lived. Don't get pulled back to his or her charm. The best way to gain closure and to begin the healing is to leave for good and cut off all contact permanently. Don't be manipulated. And I would say, don't remember this. It's what you're allowing or not allowing. Have a good day. I hope you learned something. Thank you for listening.